Hello, and welcome to this special edition feature on Leave a Legacy of Southeast Michigan. The Leave a Legacy organization is focused on helping Oakland County and Southeast Michigan residents realize the impact of their charity on organizations through planned gifts. And we're going to describe that and explain it in just a minute. Those are gifts that go beyond our lifetimes. We will get to that in good order. What I want to do right now is welcome you and identify who we have here speaking with us. I'm Bob Alexander. I'm a longtime Oakland County resident. I am the Director of Development at Angela Hospice, and I am a volunteer for Leave a Legacy of Southeast Michigan, and that's why I'm here talking about it. But I have really knowledgeable people here talking about it as well. Mr. Steve Moore is here with us, and Mr. Steve Boggs are here with us. Steve Moore is the director, if I got it right, the Director of Philanthropy for Wayne State.
For the Mike Illitch School of Business at Wayne State.
Mike Illitch School of Business. That's pretty cool. I know that name.
Yes.
And Mr. Steve Boggs is a managing partner at Grant, Millman, and Johnson.
That is correct. CPA firms over in Novi, and we've been around since 1984.
Right. And I kind of wanted to do some home kind of stuff. What is Novi to you?
Well, Novi, I actually just live a couple blocks away, and so it's definitely home. We've lived here for 19 years. We lived in Troy 17 before that, so I've been an Oakland County resident for 36 years now. Hard to believe. Time flies, but during that time I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of wonderful charitable organizations and seen a lot of people support those, so it's been terrific, and we enjoy the Novi and surrounding community.
It's a beautiful area, for sure. Steve, what's your connection to Novi?
Connection to Novi, our firm has been in Novi for the last 10 years. We started in 1984 and moved over to 13 Mile and Haggerty area about 10 years ago. And myself, I've been in Oakland County for almost 50 years, moved here right after college. I know I don't look that old, but right after college, and been out in the Oakland County area. So, and have had a lot of activity with Novi. I've participated with Novi's annual Memorial Day parades and their sports facilities, etc. So
nice. So we're from town, so that's a good thing. So we're talking to people who are our neighbors and our friends, certainly, our people that we've lived and worked with. What I want to talk about, what we're here to do, so that you kind of set expectations, is that we're here to champion the idea of planned giving, that is, giving beyond our lifetimes. What we're not here to do is make a pitch for any particular charity or any particular anything. We just want the idea to sort of go forward and grow in understanding. So that's sort of the point of this, so that we set our expectations properly. And I want to talk about just that. I want to talk about charities and lifetime kinds of things. The fact is, in Michigan, I know we're charitable people. We're known for being charitable by certain real measures. But I think that a lot of us, very few of us actually, have an understanding of what goes on administratively with charitable organizations. So we may be contributors, but I think that it would be instructive to have sort of an insight into how charities are affected by the way that charitable people interact with them. So I'm going to start with you, Steve, to say what is it that you know about the charitability of Michiganians?
Well, it's significant. As you know, Bob, Leave a Legacy commissions a study that is done actually at Michigan State to look at giving from Michigan residents. And I'm pleased to say that over 80% of Michigan residents give to some type of charity on an annual basis. So Michigan folks, it's kind of that solid Midwest support the home front mentality, I think, and people take it seriously. I have been involved in, as I said a moment ago, many of those organizations, and so those annual gifts are the lifeline of so many organizations. They depend on them, helps them with programming, helps them with staff, helps them give back to the communities that they serve. So those annual gifts, when you get a little flyer in the mail or an email or that reminder with a phone call, they are extremely important, and we're fortunate to live in such a charitable state.
We really are, and as you say, the charities themselves are not just impacted by it, but they actually look the way they look because of the support and the donations, things that come in from the donors themselves. From your perspective, Steve Boggs, what do you see?
Well, those things I see, and our firm works a lot and does a lot of nonprofit organizations, and we see the inside part of where those charitable contributions are very, very important, and the continuous support, and not only it's one to the hundreds and hundreds. It's not just one large one, and you can see the real impact when the charitable giving falls off. So we see a lot of that, and how important it is for the communities that they service.
Right. I think that many of us, like you say, it's sort of our DNA, the kind of people that we are, the community that we're in, is that we are Midwestern. We care for the agencies that support us. And I guess I want to drive into that a little bit. So knowing that the agencies really are impacted by donations that come to them, it's not a small thing.
Right.
A lot of times it's like the big thing, right?
Absolutely.
It's what they kind of depend on in order to perpetuate the influence that they have in our communities. So knowing that they are that kind of receptor of charitable income, talk a little bit about the people who donate, who contribute to those. What are the motivations? I mean, we all have our own, right? I mean, I'm charitable, you're charitable, you're charitable. We know who we contribute to and why, but I just want to sort of explore a little bit more the breadth of what pushes people, or what makes them, or motivates them, inspires them to connect with a charity in their lifetime.
I think from the folks that I speak with, it's the impact that those organizations have had on them in particular, or often their extended family.
Yeah.
If you think about Gift to Hospital,
right.
Took care of a sick child or a sick parent.
Right.
The library right next door.
Right.
People use that library, and it's a meaningful part of their life, and so it's something they want to support. Universities, certainly. I'm at a university now. It's a big organization, lots of donors, but I've been involved as a volunteer or a board member for a lot of small organizations, so it doesn't really matter. In fact, an interesting stat, you might think of a big organization like Wayne State that all these gifts would be huge. We're in the middle of a campaign right now. It'll finish up in 2018, and a stat that I frequently hear, out of the roughly $620 million that's been raised so far, 80% of those gifts come in are $1,000 or less.
Okay.
And so that is attainable.
Right.
That's not, you think, oh, that's not me, it's somebody else.
Right.
Those are giving levels that a lot of donors, whether it be to health organization, cancer, heart, any of those, those gifts that come as a result of the impact that those organizations have had on people's lives really are meaningful.
Right. I think we were talking about this just yesterday, Steve Boggs. You were saying the same kind of thing, but that people do sort of reflect back to the things that are influential. Is that
absolutely? That's what I observe. People, the organizations that have the similar philosophies, or things that they do that those people are supporting. Or like Steve was saying, hospitals, universities, et cetera. And what we see from, a lot of the organizations we're involved with are that it's the small gifts. It's not, you'll get the once in a lifetime, the huge gifts, which, make a huge impact, but the organizations don't survive on that. They survive on the, the small gifts, the $100, the $300. And, my observations, most of our clients are giving not out of the tax motivation, which a lot of people would think, well, you get your itemized deduction, and that's what, but the real true donors aren't, it's not the tax side that's driving them, it's that they have, some connection with the organization that they're contributing to.
Right. I'm impressed with that, frankly, in the whole field of philanthropy and donations, is that it is so heartfelt. Is that people, you talk to the donors themselves, like if you were to say to them, well, why do you support this? You get these wonderful, rich, meaningful, deep stories so often in an educational institution. Well, I that was where I learned how to do or be. Or in a faith-based organization, like you were saying to me yesterday, many have received they feel they've received so much, they're not being demanded to sort of fork over more, but they're doing it because they want to influence and they want to return the favor, right?
Right.
Yeah, and a connection to their community, and a lot of these organizations are community-based, and it's that connection to community and being part of that community. I know our firm tries to participate with like a lot of the local charities in the community because we have that connection with the community.
Yeah, I think you see that a lot, particularly in this area. Faith-based community, faith-based organizations are very important, and people are involved, and so whether it be the new play set outside for the daycare, or whether it be something pew in the sanctuary, or any of those things. Again, that support that comes because people's lives were impacted for the better from those organizations. That's really powerful when you get down to the root of why people give.
It really is powerful, because I feel like that's the human part of who and what we are. I feel it's poignant, and they're beautiful stories that are attached to it. We're faith-based, Angela Hospice is, and we see so much of that sort of reflective return. I was helped in this way, and I just want more people to be able to in the future. And the fact is, I think there's a certain beauty and poetry to the fact that people in our community really intend to and want to make the community influential and beautiful and beneficial for those who are near them and those who follow them.
Sure.
Right. So many of those gifts, even smaller ones, the play thing. I see a lot of people doing that kind of thing who have no children of their own. Right. They're not doing it for selfish. That's the point. Is they're not doing it for selfish motives. They're doing it to be influential and to bless or to impact or to improve or to bolster agencies and groups and organizations in the community that they see do good work, right?
Sure. A lot of it comes when they come to visit. Somebody will think, okay, maybe I want to give some money. And if I did, what would you use that for? So it gives an organization a chance to tell them a little bit about current needs and to demonstrate the benefit of those charitable donations. Very important.
Yeah, as one of those organizations also, I resonate with that a lot. We've had people come to us and say, I want to support, what are you doing? And we're like, well, we know what we're doing. And then the better question is, what do you want to do?
Sure.
Right? Because they can actually make something different. They can create something out of whole cloth sometimes.
We're fortunate at the Illitch School of Business, a lot of our alumni that were scholarship recipients and benefited from that attribute a lot of that to their success in their life and in their career.
Right.
And so when they give back, they want to create that same opportunity for students there now and in the future to be able to follow that same pathway. So a lot of times we talk about that as a means of understanding why somebody's giving, which I do think that's important. Organizations need to understand why somebody's giving and be able to perpetuate that.
Right, because it's in that way then they can satisfy the donors, right? Because it's the donor's desire that wants to have an influence. So if the organization understands what the donor desires, then they can satisfy the donor in another way. I mean, they can do what they're doing, but they can also...
Sure, and so Steve's expertise comes in a lot of times for us in talking to a potential donor to make sure their goals and objectives are aligned with whatever it might be. And then Steve can give them advice on the tax side, and here's some of the best ways to do that and all the things to work about. And I've found that when we do that, when we use that model, everybody's happy.
Yes.
They feel, okay, we've listened, and the gift ends up being used for exactly what they want it to happen. So.
I had this aha revelation a couple of years ago when someone explained to me what the word philanthropist means.
Really?
I mean, I know. Go ahead. We can all learn all the time. But I had always sort of had the concept that a philanthropist was Bill Gates or Andrew Carnegie or Warren Buffett. I mean, these big, wealthy, benefactors of some kind or another, and I thought that that was part and parcel of the implication of what a philanthropist was. But to realize that the actual breakdown of the word philanthropist just means somebody who loves people. I mean, the literal translation from the Greek words go a people lover, someone who loves people. And I realized we're all kind of philanthropists.
Sure.
It kind of elevated the the title, or it elevated everybody to the title.
Right. It's been a great experience this past year. Unfortunately, Mr. Illitch passed away, as most everybody knows.
Right.
But through that process and finding out more, sometimes the philanthropy is loud, such as in naming the building, for which we're very grateful, naming the school. But a lot of the philanthropy is very quiet. Things like that came out, and so this public, he helped Rosa Parks with her apartment expenses for years. No one knew about it.
Right.
And so I think that, Bob, you're exactly right. When you connect the mission of what people want to do with their pocketbook, it's a great way for them to get the satisfaction, even if no one else knows about it.
Right.
And we do have a number of donors that give anonymously.
Right. Yeah.
They just want the outcome. They want to do the right thing for the right reasons.
Right. Yeah.
And I think I see that quite often where, some of the larger donors do want to stay anonymous because they're concerned with, okay, now that this organization knows, and the constant, okay, now I'm getting the phone calls, I'm getting letters because I did it here. And I do see a lot of that where, it's more of what they want to accomplish with the organization, and not that they want everybody to know, okay, I did this or I did that, and they prefer not having that out there.
Right.
Yeah, that's, the internet age.
All that knowledge, all that information goes out.
I heard a presentation over the weekend from Guggenheim to Google. And so now information is instantly available that used to take days, if not weeks, if not months, to put together.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. But as you say, some people are not flamboyant about it at all, and I think a large number aren't. I really feel like people who are in their homes, who are writing a check to an organization, whatever, they're not looking for signs on their walls, on their own walls, sort of touting it. In fact, some of them do it intentionally with humility because they don't want it. They don't want the acknowledgement. It's something interesting. So anyway, I think that sort of has kind of established the first premise that we are philanthropic people, and that we're motivated by things that touch our lives, that are poignant and heartfelt and humane, and make a difference.
Right.
So I feel like we've established that. What I want to do now, so I'm talking. That's the lifetime giving. That's the 82% of Michiganians who are doing that now as they live. And I feel like one of the big objectives of the Leave a Legacy organization is that that beyond your lifetime giving, which not everybody understands, and to the point that they don't understand, it falls off. Giving that is so benevolent and so sizable during our lives falls down to, do you know the number for people who give after their lifetime?
Well, it has increased a little bit, but it's still under 10%. Yeah. I think for the last survey, just about 9% of Michigan residents have included some type of charity in their estate plan, either their will or their trust.
Right. That's being philanthropic beyond their lifetime. So this is a big bust in my estimation, is that we have 80-some% people who are charitable, and they have things they love, and they have agencies and people and organizations, and then come to that point in their lives, and it dries up in such a big way. In such a big way. So what's behind that? Why does that, philosophically or, I don't know, practically, why do you think that happens?
Well, number one answer when you ask people why is that no one asked them.
Okay.
And so it's our job, I think, in the gift profession, Bob, to get out and work with advisors like Steve and encourage them and equip them to have those conversations with their client, to make ourselves available for donors that might want to benefit our own organizations. I've been fortunate enough to present a couple of times over next door at the library,
Okay.
just about charitable
Okay.
giving in general, and why you might want to think about that. So I think part of our mission at Leave a Legacy is certainly to educate more of the very generous philanthropists in Michigan of a better way to do that. And as people are living longer, you know, they're beginning to think about what's going to happen with the money. Right. You know, what's going to happen at their death.
Sometimes I guess that might be true. Is that your experience?
Yes, and I think it really is the educating them. I know, you know, we constantly have conversations when the clients come in and, you know, do you have your will set up? Do you have your trust? And a lot of people think, well, I don't really need that. But you have to understand, you know, having those wills and trusts and having a conversation to say these, you know, things, say what you want to have happen, and you may assume your family thinks, well, you know, and you think your family knows what your desires are upon your demise. Well, they may not, and we try to educate them that, okay, you set these things up, what do you want to have happen? Okay, and I've seen a lot of instances where people want to support the organizations that, you know, are close to them, and they don't know how to do that after their passing, or they think that, okay, my family knows that I want to support this, but they may not understand that. And if you put those in there, especially like with, you know, the wills or the trust, it specifically says, I want this to happen, and I want these things to go to these organizations to carry that on. You know, because a lot of the organizations, when it can, you know, a donor that's donating on a regular basis, you know, passes away, it does leave a big hole in their organization. I see that in, you know, the charitable organizations I'm involved with, where, you know, there's donors, and, you know, unfortunately we're all getting a little bit older, and our generation, they're starting to pass away, and all of a sudden you see that drop off, and I don't see the same kind of commitment at the younger generations at this point in time, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's definitely changed. I think that is part of when we talk to families, and I've seen some of them do this very creatively, where a mother or father will set up a fund that they involve their children in, and say, hey, you know, we're going to support some type of charity. Why don't you do some research and come back with a recommendation?
Out of it.
Sure. And I know a lot of the area organizations work with multi-generational families. And so want to make sure that these values and what's important is passed down. And so I think one of the best ways to do that is involve the family in those decisions. In fact, again, that's a very common thing. When you go by and see somebody's name on the side of a building, a lot of times that was a family decision. Yes. And so it's important, I think, that you pass that down to the next generation, and they understand the importance. And I think the millennials in particular, often maligned, are very socially conscious. Yes. They like to see their employer supporting the community. They like to be involved in concerns and support the community. Again, it just comes back to, Steve, what you were saying, being able to connect the importance of their involvement. And we're talking mostly about money, but volunteerism is also very important. Yeah, it's an overarching investment in the organization that comes out. I've talked to family members after call us to say, well, my mom was a big supporter of you guys. You know that. She was part of you. We knew that. We're really happy to tell you she wanted you to have this in her will or in her estate, and they're actually kind of pleased to be able to carry that legacy of hers forward and make happen what her heart would have wanted to begin with. I think that's a really cool sort of integrated familial thing. I think a lot of people are really also just puzzled by the whole thought of it, or by the idea. I don't think that it's the first thing that comes to mind when you're putting your will together, or when you're putting your estate together, or whatever. Well, what about the charitable pieces? But realizing that those charitable pieces are an actual element of our lives now, it kind of stands to reason that thought would just sort of perpetuate through, that you would add it on. And many people just don't, I think so many just don't think about it.
I think you're correct there, Bob. I just think that a lot of times it isn't something that they're thinking about it. They, and so they don't write it down, or it isn't documented down.
Right. I've also heard people who kind of think in terms of, I'm trying to provide for my family. So when I pass away, then I want my family to have the benefit of, you know, my estate or whatever it might be. But my quick response to that is, well, you're doing that now too. You're providing for your family, and you're providing for the things that are meaningful in your life. That's compatible concept. They're not. Sure. They're not mutually exclusive. So to say, well, apply that same thinking to your plans beyond.
Sure, exactly right. And Steve can comment on this, but a lot of the techniques actually are what we would traditionally call a win-win. Yeah. They can support the charity of their choice or charities. Yes. And create actually more after-tax dollars for their family or their spouse or whomever that they want. And so it just takes, again, going back to the information.
Correct.
Doing some investigation, getting the recommendations from the right folks. Right. And many, many times we have 2 or 3 donors that I call our poster children that talk about that specific thing and how they've used gifts of, you know, appreciated stock or life insurance or things like that to actually help their family. Yes. And help the charity at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah. So many, because of not looking at it, they don't realize those things. Well, I don't want the time to escape before we. I mean, I wanted to talk about the principles, and I feel like we've established those. I feel like we've established the fact that we are benevolent, and that somehow or another our benevolence falls off beyond our lifetimes. So, what are the vehicles? What can you just sort of run through the ways people do this? I know that they're not hard because people can do it no matter what their income level. It's not as though you have to be really wealthy.
Sure.
Do you?
Well, it is interesting because a lot of times people think, well, you know, even a small contribution isn't going to make an impact. But a lot of the organizations that I've seen, for instance, have endowment funds that you can contribute to that fund.
Add to.
And, you know, with multiple gifts coming in there, that grows, and then that is there to carry forward into years and provide, for instance, I've seen like for local school scholarships for, you know, students or whatever. Another thing that a lot of times I'll have clients coming in and they'll be complaining to me, well, have to start pulling out of my IRA accounts because the government's saying I've got to take out so much a year.
Minimum required distribution.
Correct.
Right, yeah.
And, you know, I look at them and they're contributing already. And I say, well, here's a way that you can save money. Right. And you can meet that commitment for the IRS, but you're also doing your charitable organization and your charitable contributions, and you're ahead on the tax side. And people, I don't think, recognize that they can do that. They, you know, they think again that's for, you know, the big, you know, high spender, big wealthy people, and don't realize that that is something that can be applicable. Right. And like Steve was talking about, beneficiaries to life insurance policies, which can be, you know, relatively inexpensive in their lifetime, or, you know, beneficiaries on the IRAs themselves, you know, that their family doesn't really need it. They've got their wealth, and those type of things are relatively simple, but unfortunately, you know, the individuals aren't educated on that.
Right, they're not thinking about it necessarily.
Yeah, it's actually, Bob, to your point, how can you do it easily? You know, retirement assets as simple as a designation of beneficiary form. Those are usually available online, and wherever your advisor or the firm that you deal with usually has somebody able to help you fill out the forms. Certainly the most simple way is to name a charity in your will or trust. Yep. We always recommend that people kind of look at that in general. I'm sure you do, Steve, every 5 years or so. So if they're going to make an update and they've had a charitable organization that's impacted them or their family, they might want to include them. So a lot of different ways.
So people who even already have a will can just add some information to it in order to make that designation happen.
Absolutely.
Correct. Okay. And it can be a fixed dollar amount. It can be a percentage of their estate. It can be a percentage that's left after. There's a lot of different ways to do it.
There are so many different ways to do it, and because of the fact that we don't try to push money or push people into any one direction, Leave a Legacy of Southeast Michigan is really trying to be a resource for folks who are looking for additional information. Right. And so the consequence is they've established these opportunities to talk to you, but they also have website connections. So if you're a part of attached to the internet, please feel free to look it up. You'll find some great resources for general people at www.leavealegacysoutheastmichigan.org. www.leavealegacysoutheastmichigan.org. And you can also reach them by phone by calling 888-826-6737. 888-7900. 888-826-7900. And they're not going to be pushing a charity. They'll be pushing information to enable you to do what you probably already want to do by evidence of who you are and what you've done so far. So thanks so much for listening to us. Thank you, Steve Moore. Thank you, Steve Boggs. I really appreciate your insights. I'm Bob Alexander, and thank you so much for listening. It's been our privilege to chat with you.